Utah Legislature had another public comment hearing yesterday to consider the maps that they're considering for the redrawing of the districting maps for our legislative districts. Here's more from KSL TV's Daniel Woodruff with a recap on yesterday's meeting, which got a little heated.
Well, it really was heated, and it lasted more than 3 hours, at times devolving into just basic partisan bickering. It was during the hearing today that Democrats on the Legislative Redistricting Committee proposed a map of their own, redrawing the 4 congressional districts in the state of Utah. They had a political scientist join them for this to testify as an expert, but Republicans took issue with him over some of his past tweets criticizing the Utah legislature. On the other side of things, Democrats allege that the maps proposed by the Redistricting Committee, which is controlled by Republicans, relied on partisan data, which would be illegal. That got one GOP member of the committee quite upset.
You called us somehow hiding or lying about everything that we've presented to say that these maps were not developed with any political data. You just misrepresented that, and that's out of order.
May I apologize and clarify, Senator? I appreciate that. That's not my intention.
It was what was said.
We have a suspicion that may have been done. The doctor on Monday.
You didn't say you had a suspicion. You called us out.
I think I said we strongly suspect that's been done. I don't think there's knowledge on the part of any committee member. I didn't say that.
Wow.
Ouch.
So unsurprising, actually, that it's kind of heated. So we've been talking about this process as soon as the judge released her ruling. And we have with us Elizabeth Rasmussen. She's the executive director of Better Boundaries. So clearly an interested party here. And Elizabeth, I'm wondering if you can just break down for us the process of where we stand, because what I understood was supposed to happen is a map was supposed to be released, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot more than a map. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yes, definitely. Thanks so much for having me. We also thought there would only be a map that was released to the public, but now we have 6 maps that come from the committee. And then as of last night, there might be more. There are about 19 maps that were submitted by just citizens across the state. And so there's quite a few maps you can comment on right now.
Okay, so let's start with the 6. We had heard going into the meeting that the Republicans had issued 5 of their own, and we saw those dividing the state. They call it either the pizza designation or the donut. What was the 6th map? Was that the one that was proposed by the Democrats?
Yes, that was the one proposed by the Democrats, and that's also available online for public comment.
Okay, and then the others are from just citizens or other groups?
Yes, anyone is allowed to submit a map to the legislature, and you can find all those at redistricting.utah.gov, and they're all labeled according to who submitted them.
So if people want to submit, are these because it's the 25th, are these the maps that are set, or do we go through all day today and then it's actually tomorrow?
I mean, could people still submit a map today, is I guess what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes. From what I understand, you can still submit a map through today because the official public comment period doesn't start until tomorrow morning. But there are opportunities still to comment today as well.
Okay, and then where does it go from here? So let's say there are 19 maps that are submitted by the end of business today. There's a 10-day public comment period, and then what happens? Does the legislature then meet in special session, or is the judge then in charge of what's going on in terms of picking the map?
Exactly. They do meet in a special session, and that's when they submit one single map to the court. And then it goes to the court process. There'll be additional hearings, and the judge will have a say on which map is most compliant with the law.
Does Better Boundaries submit a map, or are you going to submit the map that was the one that was that you submitted in the first place?
We won't be submitting a map. We'll just be helping people know how to comment on the maps and submit their feedback. The plaintiffs in the case do have an opportunity to submit a map, and their deadline is the same day as the legislature, October 6th, to submit that to the court.
So you could submit to the court. So I have just a bunch of questions still. So I feel like I've pretty deeply involved in the legislative process, and it is still confusing to me. So I can't find where the maps are, where the public has submitted maps. Where is that?
And this is where it can get confusing because the public comment period hasn't officially opened up. The links on the website, the redistricting.utah.gov, aren't taking you anywhere. But
Okay.
tomorrow they should take you to the site that has all the maps where you can look at them, zoom in on them, and see how they are. I don't have that exact link memorized right now because it's a pretty long one. So I would
see
just
one
recommend.
at Citygate. Is that the one at Citygate?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it's a city gate.
Okay,
Yep.
so I can see the comments, but I can't see the maps. So confusing, but we'll figure that out. I also had a question about a comment that Representative Pierucci made, where she said that you can't. They want to take public comment, but they're not going to be able to use public comment. Can you put that in context for us?
Yes, and if I was a little confused by that as well, but if I'm understanding correctly, there are there are these maps that are submitted by citizens, and one of the requirements under Proposition 4 is you can't use partisan data when crafting a map, and so they can't verify whether or not the citizen maps that have been submitted use partisan data, and so it's very unlikely they'll be considered because of that technicality.
Okay, so in reality, they're probably really only considering 6 maps, the 5 by the Republicans and the 1 by the Democrats.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so not using partisan data, what do you use? Obviously, geographic and population. What am I getting that right? We want to have the state divided equally into 800,000 citizens, and not divide up counties or cities any more than we have to.
Exactly. There are 8 standards that Proposition 4 sets forward, and they're around equal population, keeping communities together, keeping cities together, counties together. And so that is what is used to craft the map. And then after the fact, there is a process where you can test the map for fairness, and that's where you get some of the partisan, just some of the partisan checks to see if they don't unduly favor a party or politician.
Thank you for joining us, Elizabeth. That was super helpful. That was Elizabeth Rasmussen, the Executive Director of Better Boundaries, and we're going to continue our discussion on redistricting, but in the next segment. But it's interesting to me that even feeling like I have been a political insider, that some of this process has really been confusing.
Yeah, and I think the judge did everything she could to make it not confusing, and I think the legislature is doing what it can to be not confusing, but I don't think they're on the same page necessarily. And I don't mean that to be critical, but the legislators that were there came right out of the chute and said, hey, we're here.
Under
this
protest.
is all under protest.
Yep, exactly.
So I don't know that everybody's on the same page. And I guess I also don't know, okay, so you've got 6 maps. We have 19 maps. Legislature meets on
October
I think the 16th or 6th. Yes,
October 6th.
It's 10 days plus 1.
Yep.
And then they'll send a map, I don't know, to the judge, I
That's
guess.
right.
We'll
Yep.
see.
Yep.
And all this has to be done in time for the lieutenant governor's deadline, which was November 10th, so that they can start drawing up these legislative districts.
Yep.
We're very lucky to have Representative Candice Pierucci, who is the co-chair of the committee, to come and maybe clear up some things for us. Representative, thank you so much for joining us this morning, especially on short notice.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So I have questions, Representative. I'm trying to figure out, I thought public comment started today, but is it actually tomorrow that it starts?
No, public comment has been actually going since Monday, but technically, based off of the judge's order, everything needed to be finalized by today, and it now starts the 10-day period.
Okay, so just as a follow-up question, with everything being finalized, what does that actually mean? Where can the public go to see maps?
Yeah, so they can go to redistricting.utah.gov. You can go to le.utah.gov and go to the Redistricting Committee's page. And all of the important links and maps can be viewed there. All of the documentation and data that was used is public and can be viewed there. So definitely going to that committee page, you'll be able to find a treasure trove of materials as you review this.
So, Representative, if people look at the map, they will also find what was behind the drafting of that particular map, what went into account?
That is correct. It won't be sitting right there in front of them on the map. It's part of our committee materials. And lower on that, it's a government website, so it's not completely slick, right? But when you scroll down, you'll see all the files there that our staff has uploaded that they can review as well.
I'm still struggling to find it, Representative. I'm on the Redistricting Committee page. Where do I go to see the maps?
I'm not sitting down at my computer right now, but I can actually send it to you after this.
That would be so helpful.
You're trying to see the maps, or
Yes.
you're trying to see the data? Oh,
The
both.
maps.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you're on the redistricting page, you should be able to see it right there. It should be under View Maps. Are you on the legislative page?
Yeah, le.utah.gov. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That'll take a few steps. I'll myself or our comms person, I'll have to send that right over to you so you can see them.
We can put that on our website for our listeners as well. So let me ask you another question. I heard a sound clip and we played it with you saying that you were wanting public input, but you weren't going to be able to use public input. And I wanted to clarify, I think I understand that what you're saying is it's going to be really difficult to consider a citizen-drawn map. Is that correct?
No, what I was saying was that based off the judge's order, we as a committee needed to make a map public, and the map had to sit publicly for public comment, but we could not go back and make any changes to those maps at the end of the public comment period. So in a normal legislative process, you get public feedback, you have the ability to go make tweaks. We cannot do that based off the court order because the map that we vote on in special session has to have been public for 10 days. So if you were to make a tweak, you'd have to go and do another 10 days. But because we're running up against an election deadline with our elections offices for the 2026 election cycle, that's not an option.
But 5 of the 6 current maps were drafted by the legislature, maybe all 6.
All 6 were drafted by the legislature. The 6th map, the minority caucus, Senator Escamilla and Representative Owens presented to our committee yesterday. So all 6 are eligible, so to speak, to be the proposed map from the committee when we come back and meet, but we're giving the public options to give their feedback on.
Okay, so then can I just ask a question about public comment can be given for the next 10 days, and how as a committee are you able to weigh that even if you can't redraw any of the maps based on their suggestions?
That is the frustrating part of this court-ordered process. So I hear you on the frustration. That is why we had public comment on Monday. We had public comment yesterday, even though the judge indicated we didn't have to take public comment in our committee meetings, just had to have the 10-day public comment online. So that's one of the frustrations with this process, with it being court-ordered, that it limits our ability to make any tweaks. But because we put out more than one map, it does give us the ability to see which map the public is gravitating towards.
And then when the legislature meets, I guess in special session in 10 days, 11 days, they will then,
October 6th.
Then they will do what? They will propose one of these maps to the judge?
Yep. So we'll select one of we'll select one of the maps as a committee, and similar to our committee process during the session, there'll be a bill file with that map that the committee recommends, and then it'll go to the full body, the House and Senate, and then once it's voted on there, signed by the governor, then that is submitted to the judge.
That is a process, boy.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yep.
Yeah.
As I understand it, too, there's ongoing legal action or some kind of, at least looking for legal remedies. Is that correct?
Yeah, so at this point, obviously, Judge Gibson has made this decision and created her order, but we are still going to be appealing to the Utah Supreme Court and, if necessary, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Is there any indication of timeline on this? Will these maps actually be in place because legislative process is slow, or will something maybe happen sooner than that?
It is very unlikely that the Supreme Court would hear this before the 2026 election is in play, right? Based off when filing is and how that works. So based off of the judges, right, we're still working through this process, but based off what the judge has said in her order, once we have our map, she will review the map based off of Prop 4 standards. She also gave the opportunity for the plaintiffs to submit a map So that's something that we're still remains to be an unknown. But hypothetically, if she were to say, okay, your map complies with Prop 4, that would be the map that goes forward for the 2026 elections. That said, we're still keeping our map from 2021 in code. We're just going to be adding this one. And so if a higher court reverses her decision, it would revert back to the 2021 map.
But you're saying that's unlikely to occur before the lieutenant governor's sort of drop-dead date of November 10th.
Right, correct. Very unlikely.
Interesting.
And then, so no matter how this plays out, and it sounds like there will be new maps for 2026, the regular process will still be in play after the next census, which is scheduled for, 2030, right? Is
Correct.
that right? And then the Utah legislature in 2031 would go through the same process again.
Well, we will see how that works, right? Because the judge's contention with this is that SB 200, which was the compromise bill that Better Boundaries and lawmakers came together on and created this process where you have the commission in an advisory role that can submit a map to the legislature, which had a bipartisan vote, that because that is this process we used to create these maps, she said it invalidated the maps, and she wants us to go back to the Prop 4 standards pre-SB 200. So that will still all need to be ironed out before 2030, because even proponents of Better Boundaries had agreed there were some things that needed to be adjusted. And so this is where we are frustrated as a legislative body, because normally we have the ability to make tweaks to something in law. That's our role and constitutional authority. But right now we are in a little bit of a limbo phase on that. So we have some time to work that out, but definitely we'll be watching what happens with this lawsuit moving forward, because that will certainly inform that decision.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Representative. We really appreciate that conversation.
It's good to have that level of clarification. That made a lot of sense.
Yeah, because again, it's confusing even to me.
Yes.
So.
And I think the legislature is going to address how we are going to avoid this in 2 years and 4 years and 5 years.
Right, because between now and the next census, you have a 26 election, you have a 28 election, and then you have a 2030 election. And during that year, they'll do the census, and then in 2031, there will be new districts.
But even whether it was under protest or not, I mean, the legislature did what they were supposed to do.
Yep.
They met, they had public session, they got together, they proposed maps, and they're going to continue to do that.